Hello, BookTube. Well, I came back online this morning to two deluges, not one, but two. The first was outside. It was pouring rain, slapping against the windows at dawn, so that my little schnauzer, my little queen bee right there, was digging deeper into the covers. It was unthinkable that we would go outside. Just unthinkable. So I didn't even bother to try. But the other deluge was from my inbox, with all of you writing to me telling me how much you loved the author interview that I did yesterday. That was very, very heartening to see. I told a few of you on Voxer that the part that I found funniest was several new people emailing me and saying, "Well, I took a look at your channel. It looks like you've hardly done any author interviews. So, extra congratulations for having it go so smoothly when you're a newcomer to the procedure." I don't know how to answer you people who sent those emails. I just want to say I have done lots of interviews that were not on BookTube. I would hope that when you watch that interview, it's with Bruce Clark, who just did a big, wonderful book on the history of Athens. I would hope that when you watch that interview, you would see that I am not getting lucky. I'm not a newcomer getting lucky. I know how to handle an interview, but a lot of you writing to me saying how much you enjoyed it, and also a recurrent theme throughout a lot of those emails, giving me a list of authors you'd like to see me interview. It's not exactly my call. I have a list of my own, but we shall see. If certainly I enjoy it, and I always forget how much I enjoy it. So, two deluges to start the day, but the first deluge, the rain, went away on a dime at around 11. It just disappeared. Suddenly there were sunshine and blue sky, and my little schnauzer came alive. And so I got the luxury of spending a rainy morning reading in bed, which is terrific. I didn't have anyone urging me to get up and get going. But once I did encounter the day, I encountered mail. We have mail. We have some packages, and also some packages that, once again, were tragically opened off camera. I will show you those first, the opened ones first. The first of which is an egregious break of rule number one. Rule number one on this channel, for those of you who are new to the channel, is don't send me a book. Don't do it. Don't send me a book. I make many videos every day talking about books. I write about books. I read books. I'm a book section editor. I'm a books columnist. And yet, so I know that it seems like the most natural thing in the world to send me a book. It's a bad idea. It's a very bad idea. The reason I make a rule, don't send me a book, is because it ends up being a waste of your time and money and my time and money. It's just a waste of time all around to send me a book that I'm either already going to have or that I've had and don't want. And yet, over the years, there have been many scofflaws who have broken rule number one, and many of those times I've made the problem worse by getting on camera and enthusing about how, in this particular instance, someone picked a winner. So that happened this time as well. One of you sent me the Penguin Classic collection of classic literary criticism, which I have had many, many times, but I didn't have it at the moment. I checked. I came into my Penguin wall and checked, and I don't have it. This collects the very first essays in people writing about writing. So you've got Plato in here. Unfortunately, you've got lots and lots of Aristotle in here, but you also have the whole of The Art of Poetry by Horace, where you can see the very faintest first beginnings of what would eventually become my profession, the profession of writing about writing, which is not the same thing as doing a book report on writing, and it's not the same thing as echoing that writing. It is a form of writing of its own. But you had to wait a long time for people to really realize that. The ancient Greeks and Romans understood it, but then it lapsed for a long time. And even today, it's hardly a month will go by without you getting an N+1 think piece about how book criticism, book reviewing, is nothing at all. The most ephemeral of genres, the most mongrelized of genres, not really a form of writing at all. Dryden understood different, Hazlitt understood different, and there's some great literary criticism in the 20th century. How I wish there were a companion Penguin volume. But I will definitely take this. Absolutely. One of you sent this to me as a present. I will definitely take it. I will add it to the Penguin wall right after I reread The Art of Poetry, which I do not need to do. I will reread. I'm not sure who does the translations here. Penelope Murray and T.S. Dorsch. See, I don't think I've read The Art of Poetry translated by them, so it'll be new in that sense. Then we have a couple of new books before we get to the packages. The first one is a May release. This is by Umar Turaki, and it's called Such a Beautiful Thing to Behold. May. This comes out in May. From Little A, which I believe is an imprint of Amazon. I think, isn't that their literary fiction imprint? Let's see. Okay, so this is the author's debut novel. Fantastic. I love that. That's much congratulations. Is a literary dystopian, and in this age of COVID, all too plausible. An African village is cut off from the world when a mysterious illness called the Grey spreads rapidly, sapping villagers of strength, draining the color from their eyes, and killing all promise. Only the young are immune. With the village surrounded by military blockades and rumors of a cure on the other side, a family of estranged siblings are forced to reevaluate their relationship when they come face to face with an unstoppable evil. What might ultimately save them is discovering the wonder of the trivial and mundane, relationships, everyday objects, nature, even themselves. The author was born and raised in Nigeria, naturally, and at the age of 11, he was sent to private boarding school in Minna, where he discovered his love of writing. And today, he is also a filmmaker with screenwriting and directing credits in the Nigerian film industry. And he is currently an MFA in creative writing student at the University of British Columbia in Kelowna. He is finally seeing his longtime dream of publishing a novel become reality. Well, that's wonderful. How nice for him. That's great. Okay, so he is an MFA student still. Yeah, he's an MFA candidate. He hasn't actually got his degree, but he has a book out. So that's great for him. Fantastic. And that comes out in May. A Nigerian village threatened by an endemic illness called the Grey that saps you of all passion for life. All sorts of ways that could go. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Then let's see here. This next one is June, a June release. One that I'm hugely interested in, but it'll be a long time before I read it. This is In the Shadow of the Gods, The Emperor in World History by Dominic Lavin, who did a book called Napoleon Against Russia that is great. One of the great modern volumes on the endless Napoleonic Wars. And this is his new book, which is a sort of a systemic study of the job of emperor, of the role of emperor. I don't have a sell sheet for it, but we'll read it right from the book here. From the rise of Sargon of Akkad, that is the actual historical figure, not the S-posting alt-right doorway YouTube guy, who in the 3rd millennium BCE ruled what is now Iraq and Syria, to the collapse of the great European empires in the 20th century. The empire has been the dominant form of power in history. The author's expansive book explores strengths and failings of the human beings who held those empires together or let them crumble. He projects the power, terror, and magnificence of the imperial monarchies, tracking what they had in common as well as what made some rise to glory and others fail spectacularly. So who does he talk about? His characters: Constantine, Chinggis Khan, that's Genghis Khan, Suleiman the Magnificent, Hadrian, Louis XIV, Maria Theresa, who's I'm deep in the weeds of Maria Theresa right now, so it's great to see her appear here. Peter the Great, Queen Victoria, and dozens more come alive with color and detail. Their upbringings, their loves, their crucial spouses, their dreadful children. They illustrate how politics and government are a grueling business demanding mental and physical toughness, self-confidence, and the ability to set priorities and match ends to needs. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, great. So this comes out in June. You history buffs, this is going to be written about absolutely everywhere. It might be really, really good. The author's credit in the Bank of Steve is wonderfully high. So great. I'm looking forward to it. Now we'll do the packages. We'll open the packages. I very rudely opened some packages off camera. Let's see. First one is very thin. Slim volume of poetry. Anyone? Let's see. Oh, no? Okay. Okay, the sheet with it is just praise. It's not actually describing anything, so we'll have to wing it again. This comes out in May. This is called Midair, and it's a collection of 2 novellas by Victoria Shore. Midair, not to be confused with the sophomore effort by Frank Conroy, who was also called Midair. This will be a lot more meaty, I would imagine. So let's see here. Victoria Shore's remarkable gift for depicting the inner lives of complex characters shines in two powerful explorations of family, ambition, class, and status. In the first of those, which is called Great Uncle Edward, a family gathers for dinner. At 93, Great Uncle Edward commands the table in his three-piece suit. Cousin Russell attended both Harvard and Yale, but is now reduced to selling off the family books. Sisters Betty and Molly are caught between ghosts of a storied past and creeping destitution. Their lives are signposts along the downward spiral of an old aristocracy. And then the second part of this is called Cleveland Auto Wrecking, and it introduces Sam White, an immigrant from somewhere in Eastern Europe. He cannot read, but has a gift for math and an instinct for the value of junk. We follow his clan through the Depression to the post-war boom in the West, where their fortunes soar, creating new tests of loyalty. Now, who is Victoria Shore when she's at home? She's a writer and political activist. In the 21st century, especially in 2022, you can't be both. Or you can be both, but they'll be the same thing. So this, I assume, will be political activism, very thinly disguised as fiction. She is the author of 3 works of fiction, including the acclaimed historical novel The Plum Trees, and she splits her time between New York and Santa Barbara. Okay, Midair, so 2 novellas in 1 book. This next one is another brown envelope, but it's heavy. It's probably a finished copy of something. And then we have a box to finish up. Oh my, oh goodness gracious. Okay, yes, this is a finished copy. Most definitely. Let's get rid of all this. Oh my god, look at all this stuff. I don't need all this stuff. Oh my god. Oh my god. Here, let's put all that away and just deal with the thing that we need. This is by Jacob McNamara, or McGanama? I have no idea. Jason O'Neill. His name is Jason O'Neill. This is called Free Speech, a history from Socrates to social media. So what can we learn about Jacob O'Neill's book? Free speech around the world today is in retreat. That isn't true. Right off the bat, the first line, free speech is not in retreat, it's under assault. It's not its fault. It's the fault of the people who are assaulting it. But it's not in retreat. Oh my God, sound the colors. Authoritarian and nationalist figures from Modi in India to Orban in Hungary are silencing dissenting voices in an effort to entrench power. Even in democracies, where it is hailed as the first freedom and a bedrock democratic value, the free speech debate is weaponized by the political left and right as different groups aim to curtail it on college campuses, in classrooms, and on digital platforms, undermining the very culture of tolerance and open-mindedness on which this freedom ultimately depends. In this book, Jacob O'Neill offers a definitive account of this transformative idea, from the ancient world to the digital age, and in the process establishes why defending free speech is so critical today. History shows that the free exchange of ideas is essential not only to the spread of knowledge and innovation, but also to upholding the values cherished by democratic nations. Moreover, despite contemporary debates, the practice and principle of free speech has been instrumental in ensuring the equality and dignity of marginalized and voiceless groups, while censorship and repression has been the weapon of choice for oppressors, authoritarians, and supremacists. Because it's 2022, I automatically want to know where Jacob O'Neill stands on the culture wars. That is going to determine whether or not his book is worth reading. It simply is. If he is deranged in the culture wars one way or another, if he's going to turn a blind eye towards the radical left's censorship on college campuses, if he's going to turn a blind eye towards the authoritarian tendencies of the radical right, if he's going to turn a blind eye towards either one of those because of his radicalized tribalism from Twitter, then I want to know that ahead of time. I want to know that ahead of time. Because I don't want to read this book, invest the time and energy, take notes on it, and then only get hit in the head with that in the last chapter when he brings it up to the present day. I guess my question is, has Jacob O'Neill ever blocked someone on Twitter for saying something he didn't like? Not for insulting him, I have blocked 2 people on Twitter, and I did it in both cases because they personally insulted me. Not because they said something I didn't agree with, but because they personally insulted me. Has Jacob O'Neill ever blocked someone on social media, Twitter or anywhere else, simply for saying something he doesn't like to hear? I'd like to know that before I read his long book on free speech and how important it is to democracy. In this sweeping history, O'Neill includes a global cast of free speech defenders, including the great liberal philosopher John Stuart Mill, the trailblazing Dutch philosopher Spinoza, the ancient Athenian orator Demosthenes, the 9th century freethinker Al-Razi, the anti-lynching crusader Ida B. Wells, and the campaigner for Indian independence Mahatma Gandhi. Through these captivating stories and others, he reveals how the free exchange of ideas underlies all intellectual achievement and has enabled the advancement of both freedom and equality worldwide. Okay, who is Jacob O'Neill when he's at home? He is the founder and executive director of the Danish think tank Justitia and the host of the podcast Clear and Present Danger. His writing on free speech has appeared in The Economist, The Washington Post, Foreign Policy, and many other outlets around the world, and he lives in Copenhagen. Okay, this comes out in early February. It's obviously an important subject. Obviously it is. I'm tempted, I must admit, just speaking as a reviewer here, not a reader. Although I imagine there are a lot of readers who share my frustration with how hyper-partisanized and balkanized and tribalized everything is these days, especially something like free speech. If Jacob O'Neill is going to say, essentially, free speech, except for you, then I'm not sure that I want to read 500 pages of him moralizing to me about how important it is as a moral value and a civic value. But speaking just as a reviewer, I feel like I'm tempted to read the last chapter of this book first, which I don't always do, because you don't want to rob the author of the ability to build a cumulative effect. You don't want to rob them of that. That's a legitimate author thing. And it can spoil the reading experience, not in the sense of spoilers, but in the sense of ruining the reading experience. That is a legitimate author task. And authors can be either good or bad at it. So I don't tend to want to do that, but I also don't want to waste time on this book. So I'll figure it out. It's February 8th. So it's only 2 weeks away. I don't have much time to figure it out. I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll read it tonight. And then we have the box. And then we're done for the mail for today. Unless more mail comes. If more mail comes, you will be the first to know. Make sure there's no packing material in here. Oh, great. Okay. Fantastic. This is a finished copy of a book we've already seen and that I've already read. And I thought it was a hoot. I thought it was absolutely delightful. This is the finished copy of Dennis Duncan's book, The Index, comma, a history of the, this is a history of the index that you find in the back of a book. That's what this is about. Most of us give little thought to the back of the book. It's just where you go to look things up. But here, hiding in plain sight, is an unlikely realm of ambition and obsession, sparring, politicking, pleasure, and play. In this book, the author demonstrates why the index is one of the most important inventions in the history of knowledge. Since its genesis in 13th century Europe, the index has taken learning out of the monasteries and universities and into the public domain, proving vital for the spread of religion, reading, and even the creation of the internet and the age of search. Published in September in the UK, to much acclaim and attention, this playful book is a history of reading in microcosm, chock full of highly entertaining and enlightening stories of German print shops and Enlightenment coffee houses, novelist living rooms and the university laboratories, emperors and popes, philosophers and prime ministers, poets and librarians. The author discovers that from the earliest times there has been a distrust of indexes and an idea that there is a proper way to read, i.e. you start at the beginning and keep going until you get to the end. A concern expressed by thinkers as far back as Erasmus and Galileo, it was again felt acutely at the turn of the 18th century, and still now, where digital reading has yielded the so-called age of distraction. Okay, lots of stuff there. Lots of stuff going on in this book. I thought it was delightful. I'm very happy to get a chance to reread it. I will take this. I often do take the arrival of a finished copy as sort of a kick to reread the book. So this comes out in mid-February. This comes out a week after the big book on free speech. I'll probably read both of them tonight. a reread for Index and a first read for Free Speech. But I strongly recommend it. I think I probably knew I would recommend this before I even knew anything about it. I strongly recommend it. I mean, much depended on how it was done, but this is done just wonderfully. So if you are a bookish person, you probably want to get this book and read it and really enjoy. You're going to really enjoy it. But that is the mail. That is the mail for today. Suddenly Sunday day. We have Index, a history of the. We have Free Speech, a history from Socrates to social media. We have Midair, 2 novellas. We have In the Shadow of the Gods, forthcoming this summer, history of emperors as a political figure, as a political culmination in many different societies over many different eras. What were they? What did they do? What can we say about them? What commonalities do they have in common? That sort of thing. Then a debut novel, Such a Beautiful Thing to Behold, which is a COVID allegory. We're going to get a ton of those. And finally, a present from one of you, a gift, the Penguin Classic, classical literary criticism. The greats of the ancient world writing about writing. So not a bad mail haul as far as mail hauls go. I think more is coming today, but if enough of it does, and I remember not to open it off camera, then I will make another video. In the meantime, I'll wrap this up, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.